Minister for Jobs, Enterprise and Innovation.
Minister, I tabled this motion in response to the CSO quarterly household survey figures in relation to unemployment, which show that unemployment in the South East is at 12.5% compared with 8.4% nationally. You might be aware, Minister, that in 2013, as a Senator and a member of the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Jobs, Enterprise and Innovation, I was a rapporteur for a report called the South East Economic Development Strategy, and I worked with the Minister who just left the Chamber, who was the chair of the committee at the time, and it was an all-party report which made a number of key recommendations that need to be acted upon if the South East region is to be given the tools and to be given the ability to be able to create the jobs which I know the region can create. But I also want to draw your attention, Minister, to a report that was published by a number of academics in Waterford Institute of Technology. It's called the South East Economic Monitor. It was published in this month, June of this year. And it says that the South East has experienced improved consumer and business sentiment, which they welcome, but goes on to say that when compared to national economic performance and peer regions in Ireland, the data illustrates how the South East's economy continues to be characterised by persistently high levels of unemployment, deprivation and lower job quality. It goes on to point out to two data points which explain why this might be the case: low educational attainment and low higher education capacity within the region, and the lack of new IDA-supported jobs over the past 25 years. The kind of jobs, it says, has built more capacity in other regions, and maybe it's one of the reasons why they are performing better at the moment. And then goes on to say that the recession really kicked in Waterford in 2002 and in the South East, and was exacerbated by the national recession which hit us in 2007. So the key figures from that report are very similar to the same type of issues that I saw when I did my work in 2012, when I was engaged in a lot of meetings right across the South East region with stakeholders, which is 14 years of stagnation, 7,260 missing higher education places, 6,312 missing IDA-supported jobs if the South East hadn't been given the same level of input from the IDA as other regions. Low quality jobs which are replacing high quality jobs which are lost. And all of these show real structural problems in the economy in the South East. So there's a number of things, Minister, which are necessary. The first is that the enterprise agencies which are tasked with creating jobs across the state have to have more of a regional approach. And it doesn't seem to be the case in the South East. There has been some improvements in recent years, but an awful lot more work has to be done. So the IDA and Enterprise Ireland have to step up to the plate for the South East. And figures don't lie and facts don't lie, and we're just not getting enough of those jobs to support real economic improvement. We also need a joined-up strategy as well, and I had a meeting with the president of WIT recently, and he talked about the lack of a joined-up approach between the government's regional job strategy and their capital investment needs in relation to the need for an engineering block and increased capacity in the laboratories to make sure that they can meet the needs there. And the final point I'll make, and the university is a critical issue, Minister, and you'll be aware of that. I got a response from Deputy Minister Shane Ross in respect of the airport to a PQ. And one of the promises that was made as part of the programme for government, and it's been sold by a number of local deputies who are saying that they had this included in the programme for government, was an extension to the runway at the airport. But in response to a PQ I got back, it says development projects at the airports which are designed to expand capacity are a commercial matter for the airports themselves. In the case of the proposed runway extension at Waterford, I understand that the airport authorities are pursuing local interest for funding in relation to that project.
Thank you, Deputy.
That doesn't seem like millions of euro being made available to Waterford Airport to me, reading that response. You might be able to respond to some of those issues if you can, Minister, but the general issue of the very high levels of unemployment.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Deputy, very much. And I know you've raised this a number of times with me, and it has been raised on the floor of this House. So what I will say to you is the economic crisis, I'm very aware, hit the South East job numbers badly, with the loss of 37,800 jobs between 2007 and 2012. However, through the focused collaborative approach and a range of reforms delivered in the region over recent years, the unemployment rate has fallen from a peak of 20.1% in 2012 to 12.5% in early 2016. It's fallen, it's down at 12.6. I still am very aware that it's above the national average, and we cannot, we must work on that. There are now 204,400 people at work in the South East region, an increase of 23,100 over that period from 2012 to 2016. And in fact, over the past 3 years, employment growth in the region has increased at a faster pace than the national increase. And while the current unemployment rate in the South East is still too high, these figures do demonstrate that the overall trend is one of steady recovery. I will work relentlessly with the various agencies and stakeholders in the region to ensure that this trend continues and that jobs continue to be created. The Regional Action Plans for Jobs initiative for the South East and for indeed the other 7 regions along with the South East is a concrete example of the targeted approach that we are undertaking to boost regional employment. The core objective of the plan is to have a further 25,000 at work in the South East region by 2020. The plan is being monitored and driven by an implementation committee comprising of representatives from the enterprise sector as well as the local authority, the enterprise agencies and other public bodies in the region. The South East Regional Plan contains several key actions that will be delivered over the period 2015 to 2017, and these include completing the construction of the new technology and industrial buildings in Waterford and Carlow, establishing the new Regional Skills Forum, developing the world-leading sectoral clusters and ecosystems, and continuing the development of the Technological University in the South East. I intend to visit the region and meeting stakeholders and, please God, yourself, Deputy, to ensure that plans are being implemented in the region. I expect the first progress report of the South East Plan to be published in Q3 of this year. And supporting the implementation of the regional plans is a fund of £250 million to be provided to Enterprise Ireland and the IDA. And on June the 1st, I announced an initial allocation of €5 million in competitive funding for 48 local and regional initiatives under 2 competitive calls. One was the Leo Competitive Fund and the other the Community Enterprise Initiative. In the South East region, 6 projects involving LEOs were successful under the Leo Competitive Fund, and a further 4 projects were successful under the Community Enterprise Initiative. On a national level, I remain committed to growing employment through the 2016 National Action Plan for Jobs process, now and in its 5th iteration. I will continue to work with the enterprise agencies to ensure targeted actions are taken to improve the employment and enterprise environment in the region.
Deputy Cullinane, 2 minutes and your
Thank you very much for that, Cathaoirleach. First of all, Minister, I want to welcome your response, welcome the fact that you will be visiting the South East region, and of course I will take up the opportunity to meet with you when you visit, and I hope that you have good meetings with the stakeholders across the region. I also want to take the opportunity as well to acknowledge the contribution of your predecessor, Minister Bruton, who, to be fair, did shine a spotlight on the South East region, did chair an action group which has made some difference, and I acknowledge that. So I'm not being negative in terms of the government's approach, but I think the Minister's response acknowledges that we have real structural problems in the region which need to be addressed. And while the unemployment figures have come down marginally ahead of the national figures, they're pretty much in line with where the national decline was. So there's still a 4% gap between the national figure and the regional figure, and that's massive. I mean, in terms of real people who are out of work and jobs that are not there, it is huge. And it cannot be underestimated where you have less than 7% unemployment in Dublin and yet 12.5% in the South East. And in some parts of Waterford, it's much higher in my own constituency, where we have unemployment black spots, even within a region which is suffering. So if I can appeal to the Minister to engage with the enterprise agencies first and foremost, to work collaboratively with other ministers in relation to the Minister for Education to ensure that we get the university that we need, Minister Shane Ross in terms of the transport issue to deal with the funding for the airport, and also the other measures. And if Minister, at some point you get an opportunity as well to read the South East Economic Development Strategy, and you will see a lot of the recommendations which were made, which are practical, realistic, sensible, deliverable, and will make a difference, that have not been implemented, could form part of a revised jobs action plan for the region.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Your final response.
First of all, again, thank you, Deputy, and I will be visiting your constituency, and I certainly hope to meet you there along with my other Oireachtas members. What I will say to you is I have been in touch with the regional director that was specifically appointed there, and that's Anne-Marie Tierney-Rue. She was appointed really in January 15, because I do know that, you know, Cork office, IDA office, was running or was kind of managing the South East, and you know, she has assured me that the IDA, you know, you're definitely on their radar. That Waterford is being actively marketed to FDIs. What I will say to you, I know, you know, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, and it was actually the same day. On one, I was reading the report from Dr. Ray Griffin and Dr. Cormac O'Keefe, and it was about the specific issues in Waterford. And then I suppose the good news came through as well, you know, and I'm sure you're aware that there was 160 jobs announced over 5 years for the bioanalytical company Eurofin in Dungarvan 2 weeks ago. So look, that's the solution to the problem, to make sure that jobs come into the area. You've made a very fine points that you're above the national average, and even in parts of your own constituency, it's even way above that again. So I will be making sure that that happens. And just, if you don't mind, Deputy, I just wanted to mention about exactly what is happening. I think it's on the, you know, on the implementation group that is there. If you can just bear with me, I have so many notes. But what exactly is happening? So the implementation group is made up of, say, people from the local authorities. We have an industrial ambassador, we have Enterprise Ireland, we have the LEOs, we have interested stakeholders, we have LEOs, IDA, all there at the table. And what I would say to you is, if you can, you know, if you're, say, aware of, for example, empty space, empty office space, to feed all that information into that implementation group, because the more information that we have on the ground from the stakeholders there, the better and the easier it is to make sure. And just the last point I'll just make as the Minister, I'm very conscious, you know, it's really great having the IDA coming in with the hundreds of jobs and Enterprise Ireland, but I'm also very conscious, you know, of the small businesses that want to flourish, that are there, that they're supported, and then also the startups that want to, you know, start their business, that there are supports there.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.